was greatly affected whilst the emperor was speaking and could scarcely command my emotion. When I heard harrowed up my very soul, when I compared the state of prosperity which was in store for Corsica with the pitiable condition into which I had fallen, and in spite of myself, tears escaped from my eyes. "What is the matter with you?" said the emperor. "Ah, sire, pardon my agitation. I cannot control my feelings. The contrast is too striking. Doctor, our country! If St. Helena were France, I should like even this frightful rock." Fifth, sight of abdominal pains, which a bath removed. The emperor was better and authorized me to write to Sir Hudson Lowe to ask his leave to visit the hospitals. I was not yet familiar with the forms of ceremony observed towards the emperor and endeavored to learn them and to model my behavior and manner upon those of the individuals that surrounded his person. None of us ever appeared before his majesty without having been previously announced, and in his presence we were respectful and attentive, standing up uncovered without presuming to approach or to put our hats on until invited to do so. Nobody addressed him unless in general conversation, in which case he listened, answered, animated the discussion, and enlivened it by his wit, showing himself at the same time brilliant, just, kind, and full of amenity. Napoleon was to us amiable and affectionate, seeking to center in himself all of our affections. His advice was that of a father, his reproaches those of a friend. In his anger, he was impetuous and terrible, and would not brook contradiction. But the fit over, he was all kindness and attention, and tried by every means in his power to console those whom he had ill-treated. His actions, the tone of his voice, all expressed his kindly feelings and manifested his regret. When the subject of offense was serious, he discarded the guilty and kept him aloof for a time, but the period of interdiction elapsed, everything was forgotten, the exile was received into favor again, and not a word more was said about the matter. Everything relating to these rules of general conduct was easily understood, and I had soon learnt it, but etiquette has its forms which it is impossible to divide. I did not know, for instance, that it forbade leaving the emperor's room until ordered by him to withdraw. Napoleon had fallen asleep, and fearful of disturbing him, I left the room, but I had not yet reached my own before he was awake again. He looked round, not seeing me, rang the bell, sent for me. I went back to him and found him in the same state in which I had left him. He woke a second time with a deep sigh and fixing his eyes upon me. "Oh," said he, "are you still there?" "Yes, sorry, but I had gone away." "Ah," said he, rising, looking steadfastly at me and taking me by the ear, laughing at the same time. "Dottoraccio de Capocorso! You leave me alone. You withdraw without my leave. You are a novice, and I forgive you, but neither the Grand Marshal nor General Montsalon would have retired from my bedside until I sent them away." I entreated him to excuse my ignorance, and he again laughed, repeating once more that I was a novice. The sixth, I saw the emperor at 10 o'clock in the morning and found him better. He took his bath and his usual exercise. When he came into the house again, he took up a volume of Racine, turned over the leaves for some time, and at last stopped at the scene where Mithridates develops his plan of attack against Rome. You expect me to recite that passage so much admired by wiseacres in general, but, my dear Dottoraccio, I shall do no such thing. It is all foolery clothed in poetry, too elegant. Let us turn to this other passage. It is less pompous, but contains much more truth and reason. And he began to read with the delicacy and truth of expression and inflection of voice which would have done honor to an actor. He, however, soon grew weary, threw down the book, fell back into his armchair, pronouncing the name of his mother in an undertone, and sunk into a kind of stupor. I endeavored to recall him to himself. I felt his chest heave, and as it were some great effort agitating his whole frame. He looked at me, but spoke not, and I did not know what to think of the state in which I saw him. Suddenly a crisis took place, and he was relieved. "Doctor," said he, "I am dead. What do you think about it?" Then, rising from his chair and advancing towards me, he looked at me from head to foot, took hold of me by the ears and whiskers, and pushed me against the wall, exclaiming, "Ah, you rascal of a Dr. Capocorsino! You are come to St. Helena to physic me, are you? Do you know that I will have you hanged at your own house at Cape Corsica?" In speaking thus, he laughed, gesticulated, and said the drollest things imaginable. Seventh, state of health, bath, and exercise as usual. The emperor had authorized me to go to Plantation House. I went and paid my first visit to the governor, who received me in presence of his adjutant general, Sir G. Gorker. I complained of the restrictions imposed upon us, of the melancholy state to which they had brought the emperor's health, and added a prognostic as to the issue of his disorder, stating that every symptom tended to prove that the diagnostic of chronic hepatitis already existed, and declaring that the climate of St. Helena engenders, nourishes, and increases that kind of affections, and that their issue could not but be extremely dangerous. "You think so?" said Sir Hudson. "General Bonaparte enjoys excellent health, notwithstanding all he says. This is the healthiest climate I know, and it has been chosen for that reason. Undoubtedly, undoubtedly." Eighth, the emperor continues to feed well and recovers by degrees his appetite and strength, bath, and usual exercise. The emperor sent for the children of the Grand Marshal. They had not seen him for some days past. They hastened to him full of joy and immediately began to play and sport around him. To him they appealed as arbiter of their discussions. "Is it not true, sire, that my cup and ball goes best?" "No, it is mine. It is mine," said a third. "I refer to you. Your Majesty shall decide." The emperor laughed, gave his decision, laughed louder still, and the tumult went on as before. "You are too noisy, children. I shall not keep you to dinner." "Yes, do. We will not make any more noise." And they were quieter. Napoleon kept them, placed little Hortensia next to him, and ordered dinner to be served. But their appetites satisfied, the discussion began again. Each contended for the palm of victory. Each pretended to have been the most skillful. The emperor was again established judge and appealed to right and left. "Isn't that true, sire? Your Majesty has seen, have you not?" Napoleon, almost stunned with the noise, did not know whom to answer, and laughed more and more. "Hold your tongue," said he to them at last. "You are little chatterboxes, true, but be quiet. You make too much noise." And they all began again accusing each other mutually of crying out too loud, until dinner being over, the emperor sent them away. "You will send for us tomorrow, sire, will you not? You are then very fond of playing with me?" "Yes, yes," exclaimed they all together, and withdrew in the hopes of coming again. "How happy they are when I send for them or play with them," said the emperor. "All their wishes are satisfied. Passions have not yet approached their hearts. They feel the plenitude of existence. Let them enjoy it. At their age, I thought and felt as they do. What storm sense! But how much that little Hortensia grows and improves! If she lives, how many young elegants will she not disturb their repose? I shall then be no more. What say you, doctor?" Ninth, the emperor's health in the same state, continuation of the same remedies. I had just received dispatches from Plantation House. What could they contain? What further luminous restrictions had Sir Hudson imagined? I was impatient to know, and slipped out to read them, but I found it was a letter from His Excellency in answer to mine. Permission was granted to me to visit the hospitals, but on condition that I should not go alone, but under the surveillance of an officer. This precaution was most prudent, for the sick might be stirred up into sedition, and so warlike an individual as myself might beat England with a few dying patients. The emperor was walking round Longwood. I observed him looking about, peeping into the interior of the apartments to see what was going forward there, and visiting one after the other every room occupied by his suite. I was going up to him to show him the letter I had received, when I was stopped by one of the servants. "You must not go near the emperor. His Majesty is incognito." "How incognito?" "Certainly. Do you not see that he has not his usual dress on, nor the cocked hat, which he never leaves off except during the short time he is at table?" "Well, whenever the emperor is dressed as you now see him, when he puts on that long green greatcoat and buttons it up to the neck, and takes that large round hat. He does not wish to be approached by anybody. And even the Grand Marshal himself does not disturb him. I thanked the servant for his information and waited till the emperor should come in. But he went to pay a visit to Madame Bertrand and remained there 2 hours. I was beginning to find the time very long. Have a little patience, said Memoirs. I see some movement at the posts. They are going to relieve the sentries. The emperor does not expose himself to be elbowed by the redcoats. He will soon come in. In a short time, he actually did come in, and having undressed and put on a dressing gown, he walked for a long while in his drawing room. He was in good spirits. The conversation fell upon Paris, and he spoke a great deal about the English colony. It was the headquarters, the parade of all polices. Fouché and William Flint held their market, and the highest bidder was the purchaser. I was one day speaking to the King of Württemberg at the Tuileries. We were standing near a window and had a view of the saloons, and I had just received a report disclosing some of the dirty practices and going forward, and had not been able to control a movement of impatience. These insects torment you. Crush them. You have conquered the world, and you retreat before a set of spies. I should settle them in a few hours. By what means? A dungeon, the gibbet. Marquises, countesses, all should march together to the gallows. Nobody would stir after that, and Flint's gold would have been spent in vain. His Majesty was growing very warm on the subject. I did not contradict him. His advice was good, no doubt, but it could not suit me. It is only a legitimate monarch who can put half his subjects in chains. It was late. The emperor went into his bedroom. There was nobody there to address him, and I rang the bell. But before I could call anyone, his clothes were already flying about in all directions. The furniture and the floor were strewn with them. When Marchand came in, "Ah, you rogue," said Napoleon to him. "You were not there. And the gnats, take care, your ears shall pay for it. There are 80 under the gnat curtain." He laughed, got into bed, and attempting to arrange a sliding candlestick, which he used at night, but the adjusting screw being heated, he burned his hand, which he shook for a long time, joking with the servant, and accusing him of having formed a conspiracy against his fingers. "I am the victim of fire and that," said he. "Sleep has fled. Doctor, you must suffer for it." He got out of bed again, put on his dressing gown and his flannel bag, and threw himself into his armchair. "You have read the battles of Alexander?" "No, sire." "Those of Caesar?" He saw that my answer was going to be negative and continued, "Mine, at all events?" "No, sire. Hitherto I have only had to deal with dead bodies." "Very bad company, doctor, but Montsalon will give you a sketch of those campaigns which have shaken the world. I wish you to have some idea of them." And accordingly I afterwards received some lessons on this subject, but my conceptions are not warlike. I do not profit by my instructions and confine myself to my scalpel. That is my staff of office.